Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nasta Praeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So text 42, chapter 5. So we start by words separately. Yat,
Yat,
Shadhaya,
Shradhaya,
Shrutavatya,
Shrutavatya,
Cha,
Cha,
Bhaktya,
Bhaktya,
Samrejyamane,
Samrijamane,
Hridaye,
Vidaye,
Avadhaya,
Avadaya,
Jnanena,
Yanena,
Vairagya,
Vairagya,
Balena,
Balena,
Dhira,
Vira,
Vrajema,
Rajema,
Tat,
Tat,
Te,
Te,
Angri,
Angri,
Sarojapitam.
Sarojapitam.
So now line by line. Ya Shraddhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Shradhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Sorry, the book closed. I need to find it again. Okay. Samrijamane Hridaye Vadaya.
Samrijamane Vidaye Vadaya.
Jnanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vraje Matatengri Sarojapitam.
Rajema Tatendri Sarojapitam.
Yachradhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yashradaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samrijamane Hridaye Vadhaya.
Samrijamane Vidaye Vadaya.
Jnanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vraje Matatengri Sarojapitam.
Rajema Tatendri Sarojapitam.
Yachradhaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yashradaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samrejyamane Hridaye Vadaya.
Samrijamane Vidaye Vadaya.
Jnanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Vraje Matatengri Sarojapitam.
Rajema Tatendri Sarojapitam. Yachradaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya. Samrijamane Vidaye Vadaya. Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira. Vajena Tatendri Sarojapitam.
Yachadaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yashadaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Samrijamane Hridaye Vadaya.
Samrijamane Vidaye Vadaya.
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dhira.
Rajema Tatendri Sarojapitam.
Rajema Tatendri Sarojapitam.
Yachadaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Yashradaya Shrutavatya Cha Bhaktya.
Vijamane Vidaye Padaya
Samvijamane Vidaya
Nena Dira
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dira
Mata Tengri Saroja Pitam
Pratimata Tengri Saroja Pitam.
Anyone online? Okay.
Shradaya Shuddhavatyacha Bhaktya
Yakshadaya Slutavacha Chabhaktya
Amrijamane Hridaye Vadaya
Samvijamane Vidaye Vidaya
Yanena Vairagya Balena Dira
Yanena Vairagya Palena Dira
Raje Matatengri Saroja Pitam
Raje Matatengri Saroja Pitam.
Yat,
Yat,
that which,
that which,
Shraddhaya,
Shraddhaya,
by eagerness,
by eagerness,
Shrutavatya,
Shrutavatya,
simply by hearing,
simply by hearing,
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also,
Bhaktya,
Bhaktya,
in devotion,
in devotion,
Samrijamane,
Samrijamane,
being cleansed,
being cleansed,
Hridaye,
Vidaye,
in the heart,
in the heart,
Avadhaya,
Abhidaya,
meditation,
meditation,
Jnanena,
Yanena,
by knowledge,
by knowledge,
Vairagya,
Vairagya,
detachment,
detachment,
Balena,
Balena,
by the strength of
by the strength of
Dhira,
Dhira,
the pacified,
the pacified,
Vrajema,
Rajema,
must go to,
must go to
Tat,
Tat,
that,
that,
te,
te,
your, angry,
hungry
feet,
feet,
Saroja Pitam,
Saroja
lotus sanctuary.
Lotus sanctuary.
Translation: simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport: the miracles of meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men, with a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, and so on, can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self-realization. These two essentials for self-realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word dhira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of cause of disturbance is called dhira. Sri Yamunacharya says, quote, since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of Lord Krishna, I cannot even think of sex life, and if thoughts of sex come upon me, I at once feel disgust. End quote. A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. The improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. Om Ainana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavari Paskyacha Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I heard you did not have a Bhagavatam class for a few days now. So this is not the place of my reading in Bhagavatam right now. So I scrolled a little bit back on the pages, and it seems that who is speaking is the demigods, and the demigods are mentioned in a relationship with creation of the universe by Krishna. And the creation of the universe is described as one of the activities performed by the Lord. So Sage Maitreya is describing the activities of the Lord to Vidura. So he starts to talk about creation, like that. Creation in the beginning. It's like similar as in the Bible. And then we get to the demigods as administrative entities, agents in the universal affairs. And now the demigods are speaking. So the demigods are devotees. They can be pure devotees or a little bit mixed devotees. But it seems that they are bigger devotees than me, so that's enough probably here. So, and in this translation, we hear a lot about the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's like a, and in Prabhupada's books, we hear a lot about the lotus feet of the Lord. So one can ask, like, what are the lotus feet of the Lord? It is like a symbolic meaning, like, or how is it meant? Like take the shelter of the lotus feet. What does it really mean? And we will discuss it here. So one point is like, at our home we have the deities, Radha Krishna deities, and Gaurnitai deities. So we can see directly the lotus feet of the Lord. They are present on the deities which are present in our house. So it is recommended that one takes the lotus feet of the Lord in his heart, like the picture of the lotus feet one takes in his heart. And we will also discover what taking in this heart means. So it's meant like taking shelter of the lotus feet, so I can see directly the lotus feet of the Lord through the deities. Krishna coming down to this universe in many ways. And one of those ways is incarnating himself as the Archa Vigraha, as the deity. So we can see directly the lotus feet of the Lord. It is also mentioned that the first and second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam are the lotus feet of the Lord. So one begins reading Srimad Bhagavatam by starting with the canto 1 and canto 2. One does not start with like canto 7 or canto 10. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning. And also we can take many examples from devotees, which are also mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like Kunti Devi's prayers. She prays to the lotus feet of the Lord. She says, Namah Pankaja Nabhaya, Namah Pankaja Maline, Namah Pankaja Netraya, Namaste Pankaja Angraye. Angraye is the same word as here. It's the feet. So Queen Kunti offers obeisances to the lotus feet of the Lord, and also to other lotus-like features of the body of the Lord. And like we can also understand psychologically that like bowing down before someone, that means like putting our head close to the feet of the other person. It's like a symbolic representation of surrender, and one also displays vulnerability. So the beginning is like surrender unto the Lord. That's like where the Bhagavad Gita ends, with Krishna recommending to Arjuna that you surrender unto me, and I will protect you from all kinds of fears. And that's where Srimad Bhagavatam begins. So first one surrenders unto the lotus feet. So, and here it is described like taking the shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. So it is also connected with the feeling of safety, like being safe at the lotus feet, surrendering oneself at the lotus feet. And this is contrasted with, as Prabhupada here writes in the purport, with personal regulative endeavors. So either I can take the path of myself trying to put together some plan. Even if my plan is self-realization, I can put together some plan that I did myself, or I might just by applying the regulative principles, like the restrictions, to reach something. And this process is not recommended here. Also, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Yenye aravindaksha vimukta manina stvai astabhavat avishudha buddhaya aruya krichena param padam tataha patanti adho anadrita yushmat angraya. The translation is O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. So the regard for the lotus feet of the Lord is very essential in the spiritual progress. As we can see here, there is always a chance of falling down, from which developed progress there is, if one does not take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And this is also connected for me with and here in the purport too, it's connected with knowledge. So knowledge is described in Bhagavad Gita. It's defined. Amanitvam adambitvam. So the first is humility. Humility means like not trying to gain respect from others. Also, it means that realization that I'm limited and there is something for me, that is something I do not know. So that naturally opens the door for me to surrender unto someone who knows, because that's like the only way I can resolve this. I can try to figure it out myself, but I will be always imperfect in my conclusions because that's the human context. I'm bound to commit mistakes. I'm bound to try to cheat others. I'm bound to cheat myself. My senses are limited and I'm in illusion. So these are some good reasons to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. And we also talk about the lotus feet of the pure devotee. The pure devotee is a pure representative of the Lord. So there is no difference between surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord and surrendering unto the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And here, there is an interesting sentence, at least it was interesting for me when I was reading it. Prabhupada writes, such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. So one can ask, okay, how do I accept a spiritual master, right? Is there like some process? Should I write the spiritual master some mail? Please, will you accept me? And he replies like, yes, no, maybe in the future, and like that. And here it's described quite clearly that one hears from the spiritual master. So there are many practicing devotees who hear from Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's classes. So they are in the process of being accepted by Prabhupada. That's like simple. It's described here. And then their spiritual master is simply simply Prabhupada. So that was one interesting point. Yes, yes. And here, okay, we can also focus on the result of taking shelter unto the lotus feet of the Lord. So here it is described, okay, taking shelter unto the lotus feet of the Lord is not different from the devotional service. I think there is a class where Prabhupada, well, yes, or in Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says that it means It means rendering devotional service. And the result of the devotional service, it's described here, and also it's described in the first canto. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayati Ashu Vairagyam Gyanam Chayat Ahaitukam. So the result of devotional service comes very soon. That's the promise, and one attains knowledge and detachment. Here it is described as strength of detachment, and by this one becomes dhira. So we have also the term dhira. And here my understanding is that in the purport one cannot have detachment without knowledge. Yes, because true detachment is based on the true understanding. Like the first incident in Bhagavad Gita, the word dhira, dehi nosminyata dehe koumaram yovanam jara. So that's the understanding. One gets the understanding that the body changes during our life, right? The young body changes to bigger body, then the body looks old, and then the body falls apart by some cause. So that's the beginning of understanding. And if I understand this, I automatically get detachment from the body, because I understand that the body is not me. It's also described, it's like clothes, it's like changing clothes. So I like my clothes. At the same time, it's not the end of the world if I lose my shirt, let's say. I can get a new one. So by the devotional service, one gets the understanding and also gets the strength of detachment from the objects of the senses. Okay, I doubt that. That's the sharing of my wife. Okay, I might spend a few hours, days, weeks searching for the shirt, but in the end, I will say like, okay, it's gone. And I might seek a few hours of psychotherapy, but in the end, I will be fine with it. Okay, so the process, like we already mentioned, that starts with hearing. Here is also described that Lord Chaitanya strongly recommended this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee. Yane preyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukaritan bhavati abhartan stane stita shrutigatan tanuvan manovir. So that's the recommendation that came from the discussion of Lord Chaitanya with Ramananda Roy. So by hearing from a bona fide person, we get initiated into the devotional service unto the Lord. And by the devotional service, we are getting understanding and we are getting detachment. Okay. In our morning readings, we are now in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are reading about the talks between Vidura and Dhritarashtra. So again, Vidura is on the scene, and he's instructing his like stepbrother Vidura, his stepbrother Dhritarashtra. And Prabhupada in the purports is describing like different kinds of detachment. Okay, so one can detach himself out of disgust, or maybe I would describe it, maybe make a further distinction. It's like a man in the family realizes that those family relationships are really difficult, painful, it's suffering. It's like in the fifth canto, it's like described as the wife is sucking blood from the husband during the day, during the night, and so on. Okay, so the man gets some understanding of how this world works, and out of disgust he goes out of the house and becomes he can become a sannyasi. So that's like one kind of detachment, but it's like out of disgust. It's like still in the world of duality. It's like good, bad. I like this, I don't like that. So I'm still kind of trapped in the material conception of life. But there are other kinds of or qualities of detachment. One quality is dhira. So that's the one who can stay in the family or can stay outside of the family and is not disturbed when such reasons for disturbance are there. And then also Prabhupada describes the quality of detachment of a devotee of the Lord. The devotee is actually actively engaged in the service of the Lord, and by that he is detached from all materialistic activities, and he is outside of the world of duality. So there are like various qualities of detachment, and like also like one who is trying for detachment, he can be called a transcendentalist. Okay. So in the last days, I was listening to a discussion of in Bible, Moses coming down from the mountains with with 10 commandments. Actually, probably better translation, as I've realized, is not commandments, but statements, because as some maybe practicing Jews or like other people who are very into studying Bible would say, there are like hundreds of commandments in the Bible. There is like hundreds of do's and hundreds of don'ts. So these are like 10 statements that God makes. And Prabhupada describes the 10 commandments as regulative principles. If we look at the 10 commandments from Moses, there are mostly don'ts, don't kill, and like that. And out of the 10, there are 2 do's. Just 2 of them are do's. So one is honor your parents. This is an interesting one. And the other one is honor Shabbat, like make one day of the week holy. And these are like the only two do's, and that's quite like I'm getting the sense that there is something missing. That like these are the regulative principles that like create the boundaries, and then I have the boundaries, and I need to fill the space within those boundaries, because I don't want to just focus on honoring my parents and having 1 day per week holy. Yeah, and like what I got the sense that maybe like many practicing Jews are confused what making the day holy means. Like yes, like it often means like doing something special with which I do not do in other days. Like I wasn't that satisfied in like the full description of the of what one should really do. Anyhow, I take those as like regulative principles which create the space, and then I need to fill the space with something. Okay, so this was a detour to my experience of Bible. So let's see. Okay, I think I will read the verse once again, and we shall see where we go after that. Yach sadhaya shruttavatya cha bhaktya samrejamane hridaye vadaya jnanena vairagya balena dhira vraje mata tengri saroja pitam. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Hare Krishna. Thank you for hearing. Thank you for being here with me. And now is the space if someone wants to share something, ask something, and like that.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Ah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Now you. Okay, I will. Hare Krishna. I just want to say that I really appreciated the point. That's how I got attracted to this class. The points about what does the lotus feet means. And I really appreciated the point about like the bowing down. Like I never like thought it as a, whatever, like taking the lotus feet as a meditation. But it's true that I feel like so sheltered when I offer obeisances. It's like a very safe place, and it's like coming down to the feet. So I just appreciate that connection that you made.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I've promised you that I will be talking about the lotus feet, and this is why you came. Otherwise, it would be more difficult. Okay, yeah, yes, and you feel sheltered, you feel safe when you bow down before Prabhupada, before Krishna.
Yes, sorry. And it's actually something I really like to meditate on too, like, wherever I remember to just see myself in that position. And it's very soothing. So I appreciate it. It can also like be the meditation on the lotus feet in that form.
Yes, yes, and like the mood that you are sharing is like described in this verse. Like take the sanctuary of the lotus feet of the Lord. Like the sanctuary is like very peaceful place, right? It's like peaceful, joyful, without any disturbance, without any problems, like a sacred space, safe space. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, to pick up on Vladimi's, the lotus feet of our spiritual master is the only way by which we can attend pure devotional service. I bow down to the lotus feet with prayer and reverence. So like the bowing down with awe and reverence at the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the only way by which we can attend pure devotional service. And I like Vladimi's comment about, like just doing that. And some of us, we have, I have the lotus feet here. Some devotees, they took a footprint of Srila Prabhupada, and then we can have the print, or we can have the other side of the print. I don't know how to say. And I have a friend who have taken the instruction of holding the lotus feet of Krishna in the mind very seriously. And she's seeing herself like meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna, like literally taking the feet of Krishna, deities that she likes, and she's just putting, and she share how when she practiced seriously that just doing that she become like transcendental to the mode of material nature. There's so much instruction. Of course, the best way to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord is to chant his name, because he's non-different than his name, and then in his name there is his lotus feet. So I just appreciated that you spoke about the lotus feet also. And then there's a sentence that jumped at me in a purport, 2 sentences. It says the most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. So that's the most stubborn. And one who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. So it's interesting because sometimes there is debate like why is sex life bad? Why you need to? But here it's very simple. It's just if you are realized naturally, the itching of your body is not going to be attracted. So it just like come to a place of cause and effect versus like duality of the activities.
Yes, thank you. Yes, like you've mentioned Narottam Das Thakur, like the lotus feet of your spiritual master, like he also describes the feeling with which to bow down before the Lord with like awe and reverence, because like okay, like I can bow down without any like, let's say, strong feeling, and it will have some benefit or a result, and gradually, usually, I develop a feeling, and the process becomes stronger. So when one practices, it's not then just like the external act or the thought, but it becomes like a thought feeling or action feeling. Then one starts to like have these feelings when offering his obeisances, and that makes the faith of the practitioner, of the devotee, stronger. And I'm also enlivened by the example that you share, like someone took like the instruction from the Bhagavatam very like strictly, and she could like experience the result like very maybe quickly, coming out of the modes of the material nature. Yes, and the sex you've mentioned. Yes, it like maybe yeah, like these are like the discussions, right? Is sex good, bad, blah blah blah. It like it depends on your goal, right? If your only goal is to have as much sex as possible, maybe then it's always also better to like do devotional service because you get transcendental credits, and in the next life you can have much better body in which you can make much more sex. But okay, if your goal is not like self-realization, then it might be something different. Like if I say, okay, my goal is self-realization, then yes, then we can point to the simple like causal relationship that you've described. Anandini?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class. It was inspiring for me to listen to you, and the part about the lotus feet I liked a lot, and I was just contemplating on. You were also speaking about bowing down before the lotus feet of the Lord, paying obeisances, and in Hatha Yoga there's also this. It's one of the practices to bow down. And the yoga teacher that I practice with, she tends to say, okay, and now you go into this, like she calls it a child pose, and we let's be aware that we're putting the heart above the mind, like above the head. And so I just, as you were speaking, I was remembering that, and translating it into my mind creates great plans, really great plans. Unfortunately, most of them don't work out. And then there's the plans of the heart. When I see, okay, so God is in my heart and He's guiding me as Paramatma. And if I remember that and put that above my mind, not that the mind is not important, but to put that above my small narrow mind, then life could look a lot different. And then another thing, just the connection I made when you were speaking about knowledge, and it's also written, knowledge brings detachment. I was making connection to forgiveness, and I'm thinking about the connection between detachment and forgiveness. Like in an example of someone does something to me, and I'm a victim. I feel victimized. I'm hurt, and and I can feel angry at the person and upset. And if I practice empathy with that person, I come to a place of understanding what led them to do this, what they did, then I come to a place of forgiveness, and maybe that's the same as detachment.
Yes, yeah, thank you. You are experiencing like the knowledge to detachment process, like in your own in your own life, like based on understanding, you can like detached, like forgive to the other person. Yeah, like ultimate like understanding is like the distinction between the soul and the body, and also like the understanding of the material context and understanding about karma and like that. Yes, and with the bowing down, what I'm taking from this discussion is like the act of like really like putting my head down. It's not just some movement, it's like a specific movement that has like psychological towards transcendental significance, because there is something happening when one puts like the head below the heart, let's say, or like the head below the waist, or something like that. It's not just like a random thing. that would be recommended. Damayanti?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the class. Something that came to mind too is another way to surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord is by wearing tilak. And the symbol I've heard is like the lotus feet are on the forehead, with the heel being the the top part, and then the lotus is the petal on the nose. And I do feel safer, like just practically. It's like wearing neck beads. I put tilak on, I feel like I'll be safe no matter what. So the tilak came to mind. And also I just wanted to share that the other day I felt emotional, and I guess you could say I felt like attachment. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go read from Prabhupada to help me. And I guess either way, like I could have read something that directly related to the actual topic on my mind, or I read something completely different, not related to the topic at all, that's on my heart and mind. And it helps me detach, because I'm like, oh yeah, there's like this whole other reality. Like it's like the knowledge of the modes of material nature and creation, or whatever I opened up and read. I was like, it kind of just took me out of my smaller, my more narrow, vision, and it helped me cultivate detachment. And I was thinking about just practically too, like when we create sacred space for ourselves and others, the knowledge comes of what is the truth inside of the person, like thinking of coaching. When the truth comes, there's like a sudden shift in all that emotional energy. There can be, and then the detachment from whatever they were upset about before. It's like, oh, like there's like this realization of, so it can be like inner knowledge can help support detachment as well as like the external, like the bigger reality. So I was just thinking about knowledge and attachment. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Damayanti. Yes, like your experience of knowledge leading to detachment in your life, and like the experience of like feeling safe by having the beads on and putting the tilak, right? Because like sometimes people, they want to feel safe and they put things on their body, right? Various stuff, like in the endeavor to like feel safe, and this is like the transcendental way to do it, because it is seeking safety in the true thing, in the true thing, which are the lotus feet of the Lord.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Yogesvara Prabhu, for the class, and thank you everyone for the comments. As far as numbers, the number is 613. That's the number of commandments in the Old Testament. Most people know 10, so just since you mentioned 613, although it's something like only about 400 are relevant now, until like the Messiah comes, and then there's the restoration of the temple in Jerusalem, because like about 200 of the commandments apply just stuff to do at the temple. So just thought to fill that in. I'm moved and live and personally relating to all of the comments and the sharing. Just what Damayanti you just expressed. Yeah, myself, like kind of wherever I'm at, and grappling with this, this problem and this Maya and this confusion. Yeah, it's like I can I kind of don't even think in terms of, oh, go to Prabhupada's book, a place that directly addresses that. Kind of like wherever I touch Prabhupada's books, like wherever I'm at, wherever I touch Prabhupada, just giving time there, then I get some like practically immediately transcendental perspective, even if it's a topic that what's this have to do with what I'm grappling with? So just want to follow up on that. And yeah, and then as you're the point about bowing down and obeisances, I'm definitely getting more and more realization as my life goes on. Like nothing that Prabhupada gave us is ritualistic in the sense of dry, empty ritual. You're just supposed to do it to check the box. And so I know, like, more and more I have experience, like when in the morning I'll offer Dandavat obeisances, or I'm like enjoying offering obeisances to Prabhupada, saying his mantras and putting my head down below the heart. I appreciate that perspective from Hatha Yoga, and that and just it's a transformational experience. It's a transformational experience, and I'm experiencing that more and more. And it's vulnerability, it's humility, it's spiritual desperately calling out, please engage me in your service, and requires humility and leads to humility. So I'm getting it's a transformational experience. This whole section of Bhagavatam, there's a lot about the lotus feet of Krishna. And about maybe a month ago, I gave a class. I mentioned it's related to your class. About 15 years ago, I had a client, and he had a lot of struggling, a lot of agitation with sex desire, and it was like getting him into a lot of trouble. And then he just developed that method. He would just, whenever he felt, he would like notice the thoughts, and he would just focus on the lotus feet of the Lord. Like he had particular deities, and it was very cleansing, uplifting, transformational. It was highly effective, as this purport emphasizes. And and there's the whole that jnana vairagya. It goes together. You quoted the verse Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti jnana vairagya uchite. And then Yashu Vairagyam Ganam Chayada Hetukam. So knowledge and detachment. Because otherwise we might have so-called knowledge, but it's more like information. If I say, oh no, I understand, I have knowledge. Smoking's bad for my health. I've read so many articles. But if I'm still smoking, then according to the Vedic definition, I don't have knowledge. I don't have the realization to actually detach. So then that ultimate knowledge, as you emphasized, is the ultimate spiritual knowledge is I'm not the body, I'm spirit, soul. Oh, I know that. I've read it millions of times. To what extent am I living as a spirit soul, as opposed to living under the illusion I'm the body? That's the real measure of how much knowledge I actually have. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dira Govinda Prabhu, thank you for sharing. Yeah, like your experience with offering obeisances, like that you are experiencing more and more in your relationship with Prabhupada through the offering obeisances, the experience and feelings intensify over time. And you also mentioned reading Prabhupada's books, like that very quickly maybe help you to get like out of some like the effort to solve some problem by our own mind, intelligence, and like that. Yes.
That relates to the well-known pastime of Prabhupada at 26 Second Avenue, right? When it was Bhakta Greg, who became Gargamuni, said, Swamiji, sometimes when I come into the temple room, I don't feel like bowing down, because Prabhupada was teaching them how to bow down, how to put their head below the heart. I don't feel like bowing down. So Prabhupada's classic response, indicating action leading into insight. Prabhupada said, first you bow down, then you feel.
Yes. Nice. Yes. And like the thing you also mentioned with it, like the struggles with sex life or like sex desires, because like the desire leads to action. Yes, and like the principle of higher taste. So yes, like the biggest material enjoyment is sex. So I need to come up with like transcendental enjoyment to come up with something higher. So I think there is also like research on like drug addictions, alcohol addictions, that like the most effective is like faith to God, or like coming on the path to God. That's like the quickest resolution. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for this class. Srimad Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you,
Hare
Krishna.
and I wish you a blissful day in Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Yogeshwar Prabhu.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Haribol.